What if the rustiest tool in your garage, the one your kids already told you to throw away, is quietly worth more than everything else on that workbench combined? 10 old tools have crossed the auction block for hundreds, some for thousands, and the one most likely sitting in your own toolbox is waiting at number 1. Let us find out if it is yours. Here is the truth about a tool that has been hanging on the same pegboard for 40 years. You stopped seeing it the day it became part of the wall. It went from a tool to a fixture, and a fixture does not get appraised. In 20 years of buying out estate workshops and garages across the Midwest, I have watched families drag entire toolboxes to the curb and leave them for the scrap collector. Not because they were careless, but because someone told them rusty tools are just rusty tools. They were wrong. The maker's mark stamped into the iron, the logo etched onto the blade, the shape of a handle that a factory stopped carving 80 years ago. Those details are deciding the value of what hangs in your garage, and the scrap man will never tell you what he knows. Number 10. A heavy cast iron monkey wrench. It looks like something dragged out of a barn fire. Crude, blackened, maybe frozen shut with rust, the kind of thing you weigh in your hand and think scrap metal. Fair enough? Most of them are. But the earliest hand-forged monkey wrenches from before the 1870s, the ones with rough, non-standardized jaws and no factory logo, are exactly what a collector hunts for. Pre-industrial wrenches with hand-forged bodies run $200 to over $500, depending on form and condition. A single John Deere wrench, made for a rare experimental tractor, has sold for as much as $15,000. Here is your test tonight. Look at the jaws. If they are crude and slightly asymmetric, with no machine marks, you may be holding a hand-forged original. Then read the shaft. Any name stamped into the iron is your starting point. An unmarked wrench from before 1870 can be worth more than a stamped one from 1920. I have watched a family set a box of old wrenches on the curb with a sign that said free. The scrap collector was there inside an hour. Number 9. Number 9. A rusty hand saw with a wooden handle. The blade has darkened to almost black, and the teeth look dull. It reads as the most useless thing in the garage, and half of you would set it at a yard sale for $1. That instinct makes sense, but look at the handle. A Diston hand saw with an intact pre-1900 etch on the blade, and an original rosewood handle brings $80 to $200, and the rare models go much higher. Diston was the dominant American sawmaker for over a century, founded in Philadelphia in 1840. And the company changed its handle medallion with almost every generation. Here is your test. Look at the brass medallion set into the handle. If it reads H. Diston without the words "and son" or "and sons," you are holding a saw from before the 1870s. The medallion is a clock. Then tilt the blade to a raking light and look for the ghost of an etch, the company logo acid-etched into the steel. A little mineral oil rubbed across the blade can bring a faded etch back just enough to read. That etch is the saw's birth certificate, and most families never think to look for it. Number 8. Number 8. A wooden contraption that looks like it belongs in a museum display case or a firewood pile, depending on your eye. 2 threaded arms, a fence, and a body made of dark wood. It does not look like a tool anyone alive would use. Here is what nobody tells you at the estate table. That is a plow plane. It was used to cut grooves in wood, and the ones made from rosewood or ebony with boxwood arms by American makers like Sandusky, Ohio Tool, or Greenfield are among the most collected hand tools in the world. On the specialist market, ebony plow planes sell from $295 to well over $5,000. And the all-time record for any hand tool sold at auction belongs to a Sandusky Tool Company center wheel plow plane in ebony and ivory that brought $114,400 in 2005. I will not pretend most plow planes are worth that. But read the maker's stamp on the body. If it says Sandusky or Ohio Tool and the wood is dark and dense, you are not holding firewood. You are holding the kind of tool a collector will cross state lines to see. Number 7. Number 7. And here I have to slow you down, because this is the most common mistake I see. A pile of old Stanley bench planes, NOS, 3, 4, and 5, sitting in a box at an estate sale. Everyone assumes these are the ones worth thousands because they have heard the name Stanley. Here is the honest truth, and I respect you too much to inflate it. A standard user-grade Stanley number 4 brings $20 to $50. A common number 5, about the same. Most old planes are workhorses, not collectibles. They were made by the millions, and plenty of them survive. The fortune hides in specific models and specific marks within that same Stanley name. And the trap is that most people either overvalue the whole box or undervalue the one plane in the box that is different. Hold that thought for number 1. Number 6. Number 6. A rusty axe head or a tarnished wrench stamped with a name you half recognize but cannot place. It does not look special. It looks like what it is, a worn-out hand tool from a dead man's garage. But the name on that tool can quietly change its whole story. Here is what most people walk past. Tool stamped Winchester, made by the firearms company between about 1919 and 1941, are actively collected because of the brand name alone. A Winchester wrench in good condition lists around $100. A keen cutter axe, the line produced by Simmons Hardware from the 1870s through 1940, brings around $300 in a rare model. The name is not decoration. It is the whole difference between $5 in scrap and $300 on the collector market. Your test. Read the name on every old tool before you let it go. If it carries a brand from outside the tool world, a firearms maker, an automotive company, an agricultural name like John Deere, stop and look twice. The brand is doing work the rust is hiding. Before we get to the top 5, there is something about all of this that most people never stop to see. The tools that turn out to be worth real money almost never look like money. They sit in cobwebbed garages and rusted toolboxes and the back of barn shelves precisely because their owners decided that old and rusty meant worthless. But value in old tools has almost nothing to do with appearance. It lives in a maker's name stamped into the body, the specific model number cast into the sole, the logo on the blade, the wood species in the handle. Those signals are learnable. That is the reason I put together a guide called The Appraiser's Playbook, where I walk through the marks, the models, and the quiet details that separate a $10 tool from a $10,000 one. So you can read a plane or a wrench the way a collector reads it before you ever hand it across a table. It is linked below if you want it. Now back to the rankings. Number 5, and here the mood shifts, because from this point up, the numbers climb hard. A Stanley Miller patent plane number 42. It looks ornate, almost decorative, gunmetal bronze with a rosewood handle. Your first instinct might be that it is too pretty to be a real workshop tool. That instinct is backwards. The number 42 was manufactured between 1871 and 1892 and was the predecessor for later Stanley designs. It was appraised on Antiques Roadshow at $2,000 to $3,000, and the earliest Type 1 examples have sold for up to $20,000 in excellent condition. Here is the tell. If the body is cast in a coppery bronze alloy rather than common gray iron, and the handle is a dark rosewood rather than stained hardwood, you are looking at a different tier of plane entirely. In 20 years of walking through garages, I have seen these sold in lot boxes with common planes for $15 because nobody stopped to notice the metal was a different color. The bronze was the whole story. Number 4. Number 4, and this is the one the dealers pray you never learn about. A tiny Stanley bench plane, barely longer than your hand. It looks like a toy. It looks like someone made a miniature. Your family would not glance at it twice. That plane is very likely a Stanley number 1 Sweetheart, the smallest bench plane Stanley ever produced. Measuring just 5.5 inches, with a 1 1/8 inch blade. It was made from the 1860s through the early 1940s, and relatively few survived. On Antiques Roadshow, an appraiser held one up and said it reliably goes for $5,000 or more at auction with the original box. Even worn examples without the box bring $400 to $1,800. Here is your test. Measure the sole. If it is roughly 5.5 inches long, look at the lever cap for a small heart-shaped logo, the sweetheart emblem Stanley used between about 1920 and 1935. That heart is not decoration. It is a date stamp and a price tag in one. I have watched a number 1 get tossed in a toolbox headed for the church rummage sale. The buyer paid $1. He knew what he was holding. The family did not. Number 3. Number 3. And this is a warning that has cost more people, more money, than any single tool on this list. Overcleaning. Here is the honest truth the way a real collector would say it. 90% of a vintage tool's value lives in its original condition. The black japanned finish on a Stanley plane, the original rosewood handle, the patina on the iron, those are not problems. They are proof. Collectors want honest wear, not a shiny restoration. The moment you sand a handle, repaint the body, or wire brush the rust off a blade, you have dropped the value by 40% or more. A June 2026 auction saw a Stanley Type 12 No. 2 in original condition sell for $4,200. A restored one of the same model and era would have brought a fraction. Your test is restraint. If you find an old tool worth investigating, do nothing to it. Do not polish it. Do not oil it. Do not clean it, beyond a gentle wipe. Bring it as it sits. The rust may look like damage, but to a collector, the rust is the resume. Number 2. Number 2, and it is not a tool at all. It is the box the tool came in. Here is the figure that should make you stop reaching for the recycling bin. A Stanley No. 1 plane without its original box brings $1,000 to $1,800. The same plane inside its original cardboard box with the label intact brings $5,000 to $8,000. The box more than tripled the price. And that math holds across the whole market. A Stanley No. 45 combination plane with all cutters and its original box reaches $600 to $900. Without the box, half. Your test tonight. Before you throw away a single piece of cardboard, a single paper label, a single instruction sheet from the bottom of a toolbox, look at what it belonged to. The box is the provenance, and provenance is the gap between a good price and a great one. In 20 years, I have watched more value thrown into the recycling than into the scrap bin. Number 1. Number 1, and this is the one almost every man watching already owns, or his father did. The common Stanley bench plane. A number 4 or a number 5, the one that has sat in the same spot in the garage for as long as you can remember. It looks like the definition of ordinary. It is heavy, it is dusty, and you have assumed for 30 years that it is worth nothing. Most of them are worth $20 to $50. I will not inflate that. But here is the habit every tool on this list was teaching you. Pull the blade out of the body and look at the logo stamped on the iron. If you see a heart shape with the letters SW inside it, you are holding a sweetheart-era plane made between roughly 1920 and 1935. That era carries a premium. If the frog, the angled piece that holds the blade, is painted bright orange instead of black, you may have a rarer variant that pushes the price further. And if the original box is sitting in a cabinet above the bench, you have just moved from $50 to several hundred. Same plane your grandfather used. Same rust, same dust. The only difference is the logo on the blade and whether you ever thought to look. So before you drag a single toolbox to the curb, before you let anyone tell you old tools are just old tools, before you accept the first number a scrap collector offers you at the garage, pull the blade and read the mark. That is the whole skill. A name, a logo, a model number, and now you know how to read all three. If this changed the way you see your garage, A like tells the algorithm to carry it to another family, about to give away their grandfather's tools for nothing. Subscribe if you want to walk through your whole workshop this way, tool by tool, because that is exactly what we do here. And tell me in the comments, what is the oldest tool in your garage and whose hands did it come from? I read every single one. Do not let a single tool leave that bench before you read the blade.